Thank you for coming, for bringing everything that you bring. Bringing more than you think you bring. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
This is not God's world. Generally, you've been taught, whether you believe it or not, whether you're an atheist or a Christian or a Jew or anything, generally people imbibe the idea that this is God's world or God created the world. The way a builder builds a house, the way a painter paints a picture, the way a carpenter makes a table. What you think of creating is applied to the notion of what you experience that you refer to or are taught to refer to as the world. And you're taught that it's God's world because God created it, which includes usually, and at the very least implies, a kind of dollhouse view of things. In other words, it's a big stage, it's a big arena, and you're one of the players. And they're different teams. And you're on one team or another. And so you become insignificant. It's one big chess game. And some people are kings, and some people are queens, and some people are pawns. Some people are knights, some people are bishops. But you usually, the most common player, the most players are the pawns. So usually you're a pawn. And you're vying for power, position, prestige, wealth, nice things, pleasure, good life, whatever the notion is, whatever the idea is. So this is a very demeaning view of life. It's not God's world. God doesn't need a world. It doesn't mean that God isn't in everything. It doesn't mean that everything isn't God. All is one is the actual truth. So of course, if that's literally the truth, if that's literally the only accurate factual statement that can be made, then the world itself is God, you're God, everything is God. We're not negating that. We're not saying that's not so. This is about attitude and how you're taught to see, how you're taught to experience, how you're taught to apprehend things. What's the meaning of things? How do things work? This is not God's world. This is your world. Leave God's world to God. You're trying to be more in line. If you're with me, you're trying to be more in line, or with any association that's trying to assist anyone who wants to move forward spiritually. You're trying to move in a way that puts you more in line with God's way. And you could call that God's world if you choose. It isn't a different world. But this is not God's world. This is your world. So imagine if you were not from early on taught that this is God's world in some form. It doesn't have to be in those words, but that's the idea. God set the stage. God made the stage. And he made all these little figurines that are they put on to do the different, say the lines and act out the play. What if you weren't taught that? It's God's world teaching. What if you were taught it's your world? You'd have a very different view of things. You'd have a very different sense of empowerment. You'd have a very different sense of responsibility. You'd have a totally different view of what a human being is and who and what you are. You wouldn't fall into the notion that you're a pawn. If it's your world, you have a definite and significant relationship with it and place in it. You're not just a pawn. The same way every thread in a tapestry is significant because it relates directly to every other thread. Take out one and the others start to loosen, change position, unravel, become different. The picture changes. Take out one piece from a puzzle and it's not the same. So it's your world because you are here non-accidentally. You are here to fulfill your you-ness. You are here to fulfill a very specific purpose that is unique to your living status. You're here to live in the reality that you create. That's why it's not God's world, it's your world, because you create your reality. There's no question. That's indisputable. There's many arguments you could make why it isn't true or wouldn't be true, but it just happens to be true. We don't perceive it that way generally, but a big part of why we don't perceive it that way is because we're taught that this is God's world and we're players on God's stage. And that holds you back, holds you down, and defines you as small. And as far as existence is concerned, you're not small. You are equal to existence. You are equal to a blade of grass, if you want to take the humble approach. A blade of grass. You are not superior to a blade of grass. That's the humble approach. In the eyes of existence, all is significant, all is meaningful. Existence doesn't choose one above another. And you can take the opposite approach of everybody is completely necessary, needed, significant, and vital and irreplaceable. Both are true. Every blade of grass is that too. Every death is a diminishment of the entire existence. And every birth is a celebration of the divine nature of things. Because the limited human mind and the influences, strong and ongoing influences toward incorrect understanding, give you the notion that things have a beginning and an ending. It's almost impossible. It's very hard to see. It takes great effort and a lifetime of work and really transforming yourself to see that that's just perception. That's just how it looks. There's no beginnings, there's no endings. There's the constant play, the constant movement, the constant transformation, the constant change, the constant activity of existence existing. The Buddhists refer to it as the co-arising of all that is. But you think of it, and you've been taught to think of it in terms of birth and death. But it's easy to see how that makes no sense. Because where do you begin? The big argument with fundamentalist Christians, among fundamentalist Christians, and toward the rest of the world is, well, life begins at conception, not at birth. What about before that? Before that, there were your parents, and before them, there were their parents, and back and back and back and back. You can go back millions of years. Does it make any more sense to say you begin at conception than to say you began millions of years ago? Because all that genetic progression led to you. You can't break that chain in the slightest way without you disappearing or you being something completely different than what you are. You are an exact product of a long chain. And before there were human beings, what about that? There was still genetic whatever. Don't you go back that far? And before there was genetic anything, don't you go back to that too? So to say, well, I was born in 1966 or 1975 or 1929 or 2000 is almost a ridiculous statement. This is your world. You create it by how you use how you've been taught to perceive reality and how you transform it. And if you're conventional and like the vast majority of people, you live out your life within the perceptual framework that you were given when you were tiny. And you don't question it, and you live within these narrow ways of perceiving and experiencing. You're trying to get to what's more real. So you have to expand your view to move more easily and more accurately, which simply means away from the idea that this is God's world and accepting more that you are the arbiter of your own reality, even if many things have influenced you in a way that makes it difficult for you to have any sense of agency, any sense that you can make something this way or that way by your attitude or by your response or by your choices. Because it's also not simplistic ABC, cause effect. It's not so simple. Because existence is not trying to make anything happen. And you're not a pawn on a chessboard trying to get to a better position where you're the winner. That's the worldly game. You're trying to get out of that game and into the game of reality. So if you were taught from the beginning that this is your world, not God's world, you would actually take things much more seriously. You would want to, without having to make yourself, move in directions that your inner knowing tells you clearly is the right direction. When you start from the notion it's God's world and you're just a pawn, that intuition is not so available. You're operating in a state of confusion. You're operating in a position of it's hard to see because it's kind of dark. There's not enough light to make out what's going on. Some things are not in view, some things are hidden, some things seem obscure. If it were God's world, or another way of saying it, in God's world, none of that's the case. Nothing is obscure. Everything is in full light. Meaning, everything is exactly as it is and is discernible and knowable as such. You can meet a person, for example, you can meet a person and they seem like a great person, but they're actually an axe murderer. This happens in your world. You could meet a person who seems like they have nothing going for them, and they're actually a fantastic person who helps the whole world. But you can't see that. That happens in your world. It does not happen in God's world. In God's world, everything is exactly as it appears. So if a person is bad, that badness is apparent. If a person is good, that goodness is apparent. Nobody is fooling anybody. In this world, in your world, in the world of illusion, in the shadow, this is the shadow of reality. Your world is the shadow of the real world. Things aren't always what they seem to be. But in the full light of day, in the real world, everything can only be what it appears to be. A bad person can't pretend to be good and get away with it because the badness is as visible as the nose on your face. So this is a world, the world you inhabit, your world, you have to learn how to navigate for those reasons. If you were purely in God's world, you wouldn't have to learn any kind of navigation because everything is plain and non-deceptive, non-illusory. Not based on image. Remember, God does not have an image. This is also confusing because you're taught that you're made in God's image. That's 1,000% true. But God doesn't have an image. Don't let that confuse you into a corollary thought, well, that means God has an image. How can God have an image? If God is the totality, if all is one, how can there be an image? Because there has to be a separation for there to be an image. There has to be someone perceiving an image. If all is one, image, and that's the divine actuality, there can't be a separate image of that. Image means separate. There can't be a separate image. That doesn't mean don't have an image of God if it helps you to have an image, but understand that God is imageless. You can use practicalities to move forward without having to be fooled that they're somehow the truth. The truth cannot be put into a neat set of facts, words, or explanations. So the guru arrives to, and you seek out the guru to do exactly this, to upend all the wrong ideas and wrong attitudes and wrong ways of perceiving. Wrong just meaning inaccurate, not a value judgment, inaccurate. To upend and remove all the inaccurate things you've been taught and told, which color everything you think, feel, see, and do, so that you can move toward a clearer, more accurate perception, understanding, and experiencing. That doesn't involve being fooled by what appear to be beginnings and endings. It looks like beginnings and endings because we start from the wrong idea of things. It looks like beginnings and endings because we think birth is when people are born and death is when people die, or when something is born or something dies, but birth and death are constant, hand in hand. Beginnings and endings is a misperception. Because you're not immortal, but you are an eternal soul. So you've always been here, and you always will be in that sense. It won't be how you experience right now. It won't be the you-ness that you are used to in this lifetime that is so quick that it'll be snatched away before you know it. And you'll have to confront a larger reality that isn't turned in on itself. At least in this lifetime, get to the point where you know for sure and can in some way see that you are a cosmic being, not a human being. You are in human being form in this world of yours as you create your reality and live your destiny. But that's only the form. Your actuality is a divine cosmic being, a representative of existence itself, a representation of existence itself, a representation of the divine itself in the image of God. That's what you are made in the image of God, the biblical statement means. It means you represent the whole. And you represent the divine itself. Not represent, you are a facsimile. You are the tangible, in human form, tangible aspect. You have weight and shape and volume and can do stuff. in the bodiless state after death, you will experience yourself more as the cosmic being you are, but that doesn't mean you'll recognize it for what it is. You'll perceive whatever you perceive, and you'll experience whatever you experience. But it's best to, on this planet, as a human being, as you in this lifetime, go as fast and as far as you can into the understanding that you are operating in ways that are gigantic and you're not aware of them. You are multidimensional. The material dimension, the bodily dimension, is the gateway to all of it, but it's also the least of it. You wouldn't be able to do what you can do. You wouldn't have what you have if it weren't for those other dimensions that you are completely not aware of, that more expanded conscious beings than us are capable of being aware of. It starts somewhere else in a larger, broader dimension. You do it, and then it gets experienced here instantly. It's not time bound. Think of it as an easy way to explain it. Think of it as when the sun is shining. We know that everything on earth exists as it is in relation to the sun. If the sun ceased to exist, everything would cease immediately. Everything would be blown up, would fall to bits, would be turned to dust and scatter in space. Everything on earth and the earth itself would just dissolve instantly, the moment the sun ceases to exist. And everybody understands and everybody knows past the age of 9, because you're taught this in grade school, that the closer you get to the sun, the hotter it is. And the only reason we don't burn up is because we're a certain distance from the sun, and we maintain us as things move, even though it's not always the same distance. We don't burn up because we're never too close so that we go up in smoke. So that distance is the factor. The light and the heat that makes everything grow and happen is an emanation from the sun, but you can't get too close. So your world, you can think of it this way. It's not literal, but you can, to help understand. It's your world, which is an emanation of God's world. And you're trying to get closer because it doesn't burn you up and destroy you to get closer, but it does burn up and destroy everything that's false, everything that's not actual, everything that isn't existential, meaning it exists for real, because only God exists for real. So the closer you get to that sun, the more illusions dissolve, the more delusions go away, the more misperceptions get cleared up. But it's a good analogy. It's fire. So it gets hotter, and you start to sweat, and you start to feel faint, because the whole reality is changing, and you have to adapt to that. But it's only changing into what's more actual. It's a long road, and because you're traveling the way you're traveling, and because there's such a difference, there's much painful transformation to get further and further and further, but it's absolutely worth it. Otherwise, you just keep living in the delusional world. You created it and you stay in it, and no advancement happens, and you're stuck in a revolving door of non-reality. Your perception creates your reality. What you're trying to do, what all spiritual seekers are trying to do, whether they think of it this way or not, is get to the point where your perception is not the limitation of what you know, see, and feel about reality. You're not limited by your experience. You know that something else is possible. You have seen something of the vastness, something of the great itself, even if it was just a feeling. It's so unforgettable and changes everything that you know you're not mistaken to be moving toward it. Your doubt mind cannot dissuade you and fool you anymore, because something of the big picture has made itself known to you. That's why you're sitting here right now. That's why you do anything that you do for spiritual purposes. Okay, good enough.
Swamiji, Devaraj has a question. Devaraj, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead, Devaraj.
Okay, how about now? Is that
Yep.
clear?
That works.
Okay. Beloved Swamiji, I've been thinking a lot lately about how I create my own reality and how I experience what I expect to experience. And I've been rereading the Mystery School curriculum, God Speaks book.
That's one of the big ways. Exactly right. That's one of the big ways that human beings create their reality, through expectations.
Yeah, that was in the latest Mystery School curriculum handout, and it really bowled me over, because I can see that, well, I can feel more than see, that I do only experience what I expect to experience, and how much of a limit that is, and how little I'm willing to experience something else, to be surprised by something else. And then in the Mayor Baba God Speaks book, he talks as well about how we wake up each day and we go to sleep and kind of go into the void, and then we wake up and we think there's a continuity, but it's just preservation of what our past impressions. And he talks a lot about how we create and then preserve that reality. And so I'm very excited to get beyond that, to be able to perceive more and experience something beyond just the same, as you say in the mystery school curriculum handout, the same movie over and over again. So getting to be a really boring movie.
It's all about zombies. That's when I realized Brad Pitt had lost his way, when he made a movie about zombies. He needs Icoda. So expectations is based on memory. It's based on two things. You're taught to have expectations, which is attitudinal and conceptual. You're taught that it's the right way to go, that things don't make sense unless you have expectations. You should expect the sun to rise tomorrow morning. You should expect that if you live in a blue house, it'll be blue when you wake up tomorrow. And it's absolutely true that existence has nothing to do with expectations, that that's a human mind and taught way of approaching things. You congeal yourself. When you wake up and you notice you're awake in the space of a half a second or less, you kind of congeal, without realizing that it's an activity you're doing, you congeal yourself, and very masterfully, because you're taught to do it perfectly and you've been doing it every day of your life, you pull up the whole memory bank and you operate as if that is reality, rather than your particular mental Rolodex. So yes, if you didn't do that, you would have a very different experience. And that's one very ancient practice. That's a old tantric practice from at least 5,000 years ago. Scholars will dispute that. They'll say it's 3,000, 2,500 years ago, but mystics know better than scholars. It's at least 5,000, 6,000 years old, probably more. Is to simply, when you wake up, remember to not remember. Remember to not congeal. It's a very difficult practice to learn, but if you ever take it serious and develop the knack, it's the practice of engendering the miraculous, because you'll have a very closer to a miraculous experience every time you wake up than the one you're used to. Because you won't be bound by a set of memories that defines you. Your identity will be in your own hands instead of a conceptualized image and everything that goes with it, like you're a Christmas tree and there's these things on it and these things on it. And that's just one aspect. Expectations is just one aspect, and not even the biggest aspect of how you create your reality. So let me say this, everybody can do this. You can do this right now. Notice how you're looking out of your eyes. Notice that there's therefore a picture frame. In other words, you have your direct vision and you have peripheral vision out of physical eyes. So you see a certain distance this way, a certain distance this way, a certain distance that way, and a certain distance under. And that's it. That's the frame. And if you move your head, which moves your eyes, there's a different picture. But there's always a picture. There's always a limited frame. And you completely forget that. It's so ubiquitous, you're doing it every second, and nobody in conventional life or the way we're generally brought up teaches you to think beyond that so that you can, and that's another whole set of spiritual practices that certain traditions do that teach you to perceive wider, not just with your eyes, wider than your vision allows. So the only way you would be able to perceive your actual self would be if you could see in a 360-degree way, if you could see yourself from behind and from the side and from above and from below. And the only way you could correctly perceive everything around you was if you could do it in a 360-degree fashion. But because you've been taught this stage in a theater view of the world where little actors are running around, you have a kind of a false notion going on that you're seeing a big picture, the whole picture. You're seeing in 360 degrees, but you're not. You're seeing within a limited frame that is the frame of your two eyes. And you are not aware of all beyond that, even just 5 feet beyond that, 20 feet beyond that, 1,000 miles beyond that, 1,000 light years beyond that. Mystics, there's mystical practices where you are attempting to become, and people who've achieved it are attempting to become aware of everything in existence. Now, when I explained to you, as was revealed to me in my mystical period, when God was giving me experiences I didn't want, that your vision doesn't even originate from your eyes. Doesn't even originate from a point on this planet, let alone your body. And you'll see when you're dead, you'll see 1 second after death that you are still seeing. Yet now you have no body, which includes you have no eyes, but vision continues. Your vision is not a product of your human eyeballs and human visual system, which is the whole nervous system and the eyes. It's much more mystical than that. It's much more mysterious than that. But it's discernible. A mystic who has developed these abilities to trace to the source can tell you, and it's not the same for everybody, can tell you where your vision originates, where my physical vision originates. Your hearing originates somewhere else, your vision originates somewhere else, your wisdom comes from somewhere else. You're a cosmic being, you're gigantic. I've said many times that God showed me that my physical hearing comes from another planet. This is true of everybody. It's not necessarily true of everybody that's a specific planet, but you are not the physical limitations of the bodily form. Even your bodily abilities to see, to hear, to feel, to know absolutely do not originate internally. They originate far, far away as part of the cosmic whole. There isn't enough room in you for how big you are, so it can't originate from in you. It'll all be proven. It's proven during your lifetime if you, either it's revealed to you through grace, through God, for whatever God's reason is revealing it to you, or you practice in certain ways that allow you to know for yourself or see for yourself or perceive for yourself. But if none of that happens, it'll be proven to you 1/2 second after you die. Because you'll see, I can still hear, I can still see. You'll know you have no body. You'll experience yourself just like if you, right now, experience yourself just as what sees out of your eyes. That's what you'll experience yourself as after death. And you'll kind of have, without thinking about it, the clear understanding that there's no body anymore. You're just awareness. You aren't just awareness, but is likely to be the perceived experience. You'll know yourself to be awareness because you can see. And things will come into your vision, just like here. You'll be in a different environment, a different landscape, and just like here, things come, things go, things move. After death, it's the same, but they're different things, and it'll be a different experience. And it won't be bodily based, and it won't be based on the mediation of your brainstem. There'll be no nervous system to mediate, so it'll be a whole different set of experiences and perceptions. It won't be reality yet, because reality is the perception of God directly to the exclusion of all else. But it'll be less of a concrete illusion than the reality we create in the worldly experience. But you will remember what I'm saying, and it'll be confirmed. You'll say, wow, it's confirmed, because here I am dead, and I'm still here. And look, I can see stuff, I can hear, I'm hearing things. You won't be confused about it. Just like you're not confused now. If I tell you, pay attention, bring all your attention to your ears and hear all the sounds that are going on, all the buzzings and background and ambience, you can do that, and you're aware, okay, I hear things. It'll be the same after death. You'll be, oh, I hear things. It won't be weird. It'll be just like now, if I say, pay attention to how much there's sound all around. It's not weird. You go, oh, your attention heightens. Or if I tell you, look with more awareness, see more, all there is to see. Same thing. After death, same thing. So it's not like you'll be in some phantasmagorical, mythic land where there's 50-foot this and giant lizards and mountains are made out of ice cream, and it'll be an experience you quickly and immediately start adapting to, just like you did as you became aware of yourself as a baby in the human form. The beauty of it is it'll be so different from what you're used to that you won't be able to have. It'll be very difficult. I don't know if anybody achieves it. But from what I was shown, it seems to me it would be difficult to have expectations. Because you do not have the ability to move around or close your eyes, because you don't have any eyes. So expectations kind of don't play a part the same way they do here. I don't know if that's 100% accurate, because maybe you can have expectations. I wasn't there for a long time, and it's different for everybody, and it's even different for the same person. I don't know if when I physically die, if I'll have the same experience as when God took me to the other side, kicking and screaming to show me that it's real, that you do continue. All I can surmise, it's my assumption, because I so protested. I said, don't do this to me. I didn't want to go. I was really, really scared out of my mind, terrified. But God pulled me kicking and screaming across the line. And he must have done it. Nothing else makes any sense to me. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but he must have done it to show me categorically, so I could say it to you 40 years later, that you continue. I experienced it for myself. So I'm not theorizing that maybe there's an afterlife. Maybe you continue. Maybe everything doesn't end at death. I know it for fact. The same way as if you've been to Afghanistan, you know it actually exists. If you haven't been there, you can't say it definitively. You can be pretty confident, but you can't say from your own experience, I've been to Afghanistan, therefore I know that that's real. And I've been in the after-death state, so I can say from my own experience, I know it's real. And I know that it was me that continued, not as you are now and as you perceive yourself now, because there's all this other stuff going on that's the world and the bodily senses and all that. But when I talk about this, I'm not talking about it philosophically, theoretically, or theologically. I'm talking about what I experienced directly. There was a 2-year period where God forced me into things I had no interest or desire for. And usually I was kicking and screaming, but he dragged me by the hair and said, the hell with you. You're gonna see this, or you're gonna experience this. So it didn't make any sense at the time, but now it makes complete sense, because almost everything I say to you and everything I share with you, there's almost no part of it that isn't primarily and in a big way informed by those experiences and those mystical events. So he was preparing me to be of assistance to you. I thought he was just fucking me over. Because, man, it was tough. It was hard. I was disabled for most of the time. You're just a mess. I'm sure you can have all those experiences, and God can happily and gladly and wants to reveal that. I'm sure there's other people who get that not kicking and screaming, and they don't have such a hard time. But I was so in reaction. In other words, I was so trying to cling to my atheism that it was a real kicking and screaming. But he knocked all that atheism out of me by showing me this, by taking me there, not by describing it, not by reading me a story. So how are you going to maintain that? How are you going to maintain some conceptual notion that happens to be inaccurate when the truth is thrown up in your face? So you have to give up your stupid idea that turns out to have been not correct. Atheism makes complete sense until God appears. Atheism is a smart way to go until the beyond taps you on the shoulder. I don't regret that I was a staunch atheist, that I thought spiritual stuff is all nonsense. I don't regret it at all, because it's the best preparation for the truth. Because you can be confident that you're not fooling yourself or making it up. It's not in your imagination what you're experiencing, because you don't believe in none of it. So how could you be creating it imaginatively? especially if you're literally kicking and screaming and saying, no, I don't want this. So I recommend atheism highly if you want to know God. It's the best beginning point. Agnosticism and atheism, but the position that says either I don't know, or the position that says it doesn't exist, you'll have to prove it. Many people start from a belief position and then they don't get to see anything real because a belief creates an expectation. So if you expect Jesus, guess who comes? Jesus. If you expect Moses, guess who comes? Moses. If you expect your brother-in-law, guess who comes? So atheism made me confident that I wasn't creating very complex and fantastic experiences for myself, that these were, and there's no question, when you have a real vision and a real mystic experience and a real divine revelation, the experience is so much more real than whatever. Think of how real it feels what you're experiencing right now, sitting here, wherever you're sitting. It is so much more real than that. It makes this seem like a really vague dream that you just know it to be so, because the reality of it proves it to you. The reality of it convinces you. It's not conceptual. So the fact that daily life at its height of more awareness, more presence, more perceptiveness, at its height, when things are the most crystal clear, on your most crystal clear day you'll ever have, it's a dark and murky thing compared to these revelations, mystical experiences, causal plane experiences, whatever you call them, whatever is the right term, and whatever the nature of it is, they're more real than this. So no human being is that stupid to doubt. I tried, but I couldn't pull it off. To doubt the real when it is thrust upon you. You can't. You just can't. If I throw a cat in your lap, you're not going to be confused. You're going to say, he threw a cat in my lap. It was, it's not going to be something you ponder. Well, maybe I imagined it. It's not like that. You get my point? It's the real reveals itself uncategorically. You don't have doubts about it. And even the things I'm talking about are not reality itself, but they're a glimpse. They're closer. So that's the joke God played on me, that he did all these things so long ago, so when I was much, much younger, just for now, so that I could sit here today and say what I'm saying. And it'll have the ring of truth, the ring of authority to you, because I'm speaking only what I know for sure, not theoretically, not philosophically, not religiously, not conceptually. You can feel it. That's part of the transmission, that I'm only operating by what I absolutely know to be so, because to do anything else is antithetical to the guru function. I can't talk to you about my opinions because that's the person. The guru doesn't have opinions. The guru is serving your spiritual desire. How would your spiritual desire be served by my opinions or my viewpoints or my attitudes? That's the human being. That's the person, not the guru function. Okay.
please raise your hand or let the moderator know if you have a question. Swamiji, Ishan has a question. Ishan, could you go to the question, please?
Swamiji, a while ago you told me to see how humanity is an insane asylum. And it's become very clear to me that that's the case. And how...
It's another way of saying it's not God's world.
And actually, like how a lot of my clients, in some ways, see things very accurately and are kind of driven crazy by the fact that people are constantly lying and being hypocritical and things like that. They had their issues too, but in some ways they see things very clearly that the people trying to help them don't see. I thought that was ironic. And that was something that I just saw recently. So I remember what you said about how it's upside down, like everything's upside down. I guess it's just becoming more clear.
Because in the human world, the earth world, the material plane level, the false can be made to look true, and the true can be obscured to be unrecognizable. That can't happen in God's world. So there's always something funky going on in this world. This is not a world where things work. This is a world where things careen into each other. The problem is you've been taught it's a working world. That's part of the misperception and frustration, is you're expecting things to work that is a form of idealizing, becomes a form of idealizing because they're never going to work. There's not going to be, but most people think the world is evolving into a more and more nice place. It's ridiculous. It's a Dajumskar world. How could this be God's world with the degree of selfishness and greed and conflict that is literally everywhere? Which includes you. Everywhere means it's everywhere around you, and it's also in you. So how could that be God's world? Where conflict is inevitable, where wackiness can be counted on, where lies are continuous, where truth is not valued, where reality is not recognized. How can that not be called an insane asylum? How can that be? And this is what you're taught. So don't blame conventional people for being as whack as they are, because they were taught that everything works and everything is supposed to turn out good enough, and if you do what you're supposed to do, you get rewarded. And Donald Trump, who's always been a con man, isn't supposed to become president of the United States. And evil people are supposed to be brought to justice and good people are supposed to prosper. You know it doesn't work like that. You know that's all childish, idealistic, incorrect idea. So you just be willing to see the world non-idealistically, not through rose-colored glasses, not through the notion that things are evolving into a better and better situation for everybody. Everybody will be better off 100 years from now than they are now. Everybody's better off now than they were 100 years ago. This is all made up stuff. You're here for such a short time. It's not realistic to think that you're going to clear up all the misperceptions, but the major ones should get your full attention, and at least those should be resolved so that you're not in a position of having a ridiculous view of things. That's not your fault. That's what you're taught. That's what you're given as a child by people who don't know any better. Not because they're trying to harm you, but because they don't know themselves what the actuality is, because nobody taught them correctly either. It's only adults who can set the record straight. And that's what you have to do. That's what the spiritual life is. That's what the spiritual quest is, to set the record straight. At least enough so that you're not completely deluded.
And I can see how I don't know how this happened. I mean, I don't know how things became more clear over time. And yet there's still like, I can still see this lack of trust in the process, or that things, I don't know, that I'm not doing anything, you know. Especially when I was thinking about getting fired. You know, I could feel like some anxiety around it. I was like, why do I have anxiety? You know, if it happens, it happens. Like, I'll just do my best to make sure it doesn't happen. But I could feel like, yeah, there's a lack of trust or lack of faith that I'm being taken care of in some way, you know, or not just in some way, like all the way.
Well, you are being supported and taken care of, which may include getting fired.
Mm-hmm.
You think of getting taken care of. Most people are taught to think of getting taken care of as meaning it works out how you think it should or want it to. But even how you think it should or want it to is based on something you were taught. It's your world. It's not God's world. So you're not being taken care of in the way a good parent takes care of a small child, but you're being supported for real, because existence itself is support itself. You're not adrift, you're essential. If you were more aware of yourself as a cosmic being, you wouldn't worry about, am I being protected, am I being taken care of? Because you wouldn't feel needlessly helpless, needlessly powerless. In one sense, you are helpless, you are powerless, because you didn't create yourself. But in another sense, you're a cosmic being and you have powers and abilities you're not even aware of the magnitude of. So don't live so much in the mind. The very first thing I said to you the very first time I met you was, don't be so much in your head. Don't be so much in your mind. Use the rest of you more. Be more in your heart. I keep saying it until you start doing it.
I feel like I made a little progress there. I can feel my heart more when I say like what's real. When I ask myself what's real, can I feel what's real? Then somehow like I feel like my heart more.
Well, I'm talking about where that's fine, but I'm talking about something bigger, not just that, where you're living from and where you're looking from.
Mm.
So I'm saying don't live and look from only your mind. Look from a more whole place. Live in a more whole self. And the easiest way for people to latch on to how to do that is to head heartward. Live in your heart. Look from your heart, not your head. That's not literally the map, but it's practical to think of it that way. Because if I just say be your whole self or live from your whole self, it's kind of abstract. It seems kind of abstract. So moving toward the heart is the right direction. But it doesn't mean only or even primarily try to feel. It's a bigger statement than that. That's, of course, part of it and significant, but I'm saying something much more, much wider. And that's not just for you, that's for everybody, that's for all of us. But you're a very good example of being too at home on the mental plane. You really don't like stepping off the mental level, so start liking it more. The mental is like living in one room in a 50-room house. You got 49 other rooms. Don't stay in one all the time.
Thank you for telling me that. I thought I was moving away from that, but I'll work harder.
Get out of your mind. That's the way to think about it. That's the way to grab it. Get out of the mind without trying to figure out where to go instead. Just go anywhere but the mind. Get out of the mind.
Okay. Thank you.
Swamiji, Noma has a question. Noah, could you go to the cushion, please?
With this satsang today, I'm feeling profoundly that like nothing can be known. And I'm just feeling that very, very deeply.
Is that a positive statement or a negative statement?
Definitely not negative.
So nothing can be known is the same statement as God can be known. It's two different approaches. One is the approach of emptying out, and the other is the approach of moving toward or filling up. Both are the same, go to the same place, both reveal the same actualities, and both are valid ways to go. If you experience it more as nothing can be known, then that's tailor-made for you. But I have to expand on it because for some people that won't work. They're a different type of person, a different type of structure, so they have to hear the other method for the same thing, which is only God can be known because only God is real. You're not real. I'm not real. This world isn't real. The higher world isn't real. The causal isn't real. The cosmic isn't real. Only God is real. Only reality is real, and reality and God are synonyms. Two words that human beings use to refer to the same thing. So some people can profoundly know that nothing can be known, and there's other types of people who can profoundly know God. It's going to the same place in two different directions. So you can be practical and have that knowledge, that knowing that when you feel it so profoundly that nothing can be known, that's the Godward direction. Right? That's crystal clear to you, right?
Yeah.
ABC. Yeah. Okay, good. Come up if you want holy sprinkle water. Just one at a time, fast. You can get the rest. Move quick. Bring your camera. I blessed the chair. On the personal side, thank you for the gift of letting me be with you.